Welcome back to the podcast, guys. So, I'd like to start out with the number today 12, which is close to the number of years that I've been in practice now, which just flew by. And it sounds wild to even say that out loud. But the real reason I bring this up is that it's the number that was referenced in an article that I read recently. So, there was this retirement advisor named Dan Halett, and he wrote something that went viral in the personal finance world and, it made it over to the physician world, and it was shared with me by a colleague and then again by a good friend. So I figured they must be onto something, maybe something I should actually take a look at and read. And I read it, and something in there really hit me hard as a physician. He said that the average healthy 60-year-old has roughly 12 good years left. Not until they die, but until mobility and energy and independence start to meaningfully decline. So you might live to 90, but the version of you who can take a 14-hour flight or, walk the Camino in Spain or hike Machu Picchu or spend a full day exploring a new city on foot, that version has an expiration date. And it's earlier than we want to believe. I think we see this in our patients all the time, right? Especially in the ER. And I don't know if it's that I'm biased and, the population that I see is more of people who are in poor health and, they don't have access and they don't take the best care of themselves many times. ER is their primary care doctor. Sometimes they're in their 50s and, they're living in this body that's like decades ahead of them. And while, I realize that I'm privileged and I have access and I have knowledge of things that are available to improve my own health, and I have the financial means and the ability to make optimal health choices, I also know that life does not discriminate. The older that we get, the probability of us developing some unexpected health issue is going to increase. Okay. So even when we take the best care of ourselves, life is always lifing, right? So life is going to catch up to us one way or another. So, yes, we see it in our patients all the time, this gradual decline in health and, function that comes with aging, and we just don't apply it to ourselves. So, here's a pattern that I see over and over in our community, the physician community. We spend our entire 20s and a chunk of our 30s in training, deferring everything. And then we start earning real money, and the script says, pay down your debt. Make sure that you're maxing out your retirement accounts, build the portfolio, and then live. So I gave you a little bit of that on my last episode, the podcast with physician finance coach, Dr. Brittany Halford. Go listen to it if you haven't already. Lots of great advice was given, and I absolutely support saving and investing and building wealth and creating this financial freedom, because that's what's going to give you the ability to be able to travel and to do the things that you want to do and to give you the time to take up hobbies that you may find enjoyable, because that's what life is about, right? Being able to enjoy it. And this is not on the contrary to that. But yes, we're largely taught to save and to defer. And travel is part of the reward for some of us at the end. You hear about it all the time. When I get to the end, when I retire, I'm going to be able to travel the world. I'm going to take a cruise and I'm going to, go for like 90 days. And, it's the thing that you do when you retire. But not everyone. I know some of us are going to YOLO and end up at the opposite end of the spectrum. Big balling is a hobby, and at most, you're putting money into your 401k. But yes, for many physicians, we're experts at delaying gratification and waiting until we get to the end. Except by the time we get there, and I watched this happen too. Okay, I've seen it, and I don't think I paid as much attention to it when I was younger. But now, as I'm getting towards midlife, I'm thinking about these things. We're tired in different ways. Our knees hurt, long flights sound exhausting. Maybe we've been diagnosed with a life-changing health condition, and maybe burnout and stress, is taking its toll. And maybe we've simply lost the spontaneity that made us want to travel in the first place. So again, I'm not saying don't save, don't invest, don't plan. If you know me, you know that's not my MO at all. I'm a saver investor here for building all the wealth. But I'm saying don't defer your whole life waiting for a finish line that just keeps moving. Okay? You don't need to quit medicine. You don't need to hit financial independence at 40 to start living your life now. So I've started thinking about it sort of as like a mini retirement mindset. So taking intentional trips and breaks while your body still works well, while your kids still actually want to travel with you, and while you can actually be present for it, mentally and physically. And one of the biggest misconceptions I hear is that sounds great, but I can't afford that right now. I can't afford to take the time off. And travel is expensive and it's not in the budget. But the reality is, most of us are already spending money every single month, and probably lots of it. Okay. You've got groceries to buy, you're eating out, you're paying for gas, you've got subscriptions, you've got malpractice insurance, there's like CME cost, licensing, business expenses. So the money is flowing either way. The difference is whether that spending is working for you. So putting a little bit every month to create your own PTO, maybe. So not your emergency fund, but your I'm taking time off and I don't have to worry about it fund. But also making sure that, you're leveraging all of those expenses so that way you are earning points and miles. I had a client recently who was convinced that she could not meet the spend for a couple of the cards that we talked about. And then we were able to go in and we built a strategy for her, and she's doing an amazing job of tapping into her expenses and building an incredible point stash so that her travel doesn't dip into the funds that she has set aside for her, other priorities. I think that's where points and miles really come in. It's not free travel, but it's travel at a greatly reduced cost. It's redirecting that value. It's learning how to turn that spend that you're already doing into flights and hotels that would otherwise feel out of reach. So business class flight to Europe that costs thousands of dollars in cash might be booked for points that you earn from everyday spending and welcome bonuses. That luxury hotel that would normally make you cringe at checkout, when you actually see the price tag, suddenly that becomes realistic, right? Not because you're wildly wealthy or you got this, windfall of money that came in, but because you learned how to use the system strategically. And for physicians, especially, this can be incredibly powerful. I think we tend to have high monthly spend, we have strong credit, and we also have limited time. So points help bridge the gap between wanting to travel and actually making it happen. So our upcoming Euro trip is a perfect example. If I was paying cash for these exact flights and hotels that we booked, and I've said this before with other trips as well, we probably wouldn't be taking that trip. Not that we wouldn't be going anywhere, but maybe not that trip. Not because we can't technically, afford it, but because I don't want to spend $15,000 on travel when I can use points instead and redirect that money towards investing or, their education or other goals that we have set for ourselves and our family. Okay. So travel and financial responsibility don't have to be opposites. You can still invest. You can still max your retirement accounts. Again, absolutely should. You can still build wealth. You should still be paying down that high interest debt that you have, making sure that if you have those high interest credit cards, that should be your priority. But while you're doing all this, while you're working, don't forget what you're working for. You can also decide that, you're healthiest, that your most energetic years matter too, because eventually someday becomes later and later becomes harder. And so here's what I want you to do after this episode. I want you to pick a trip, not vaguely, very specifically. So maybe it's picking a country or an experience that you want to have or a rough time frame, summer 2027. Maybe it's that you want to go to Japan during cherry blossom season. And maybe it's that you want to take your family and go to Hawaii, so the kids can have that for their spring break. And maybe it's finally flying lie flat seats somewhere, anywhere international, just because you can, and then build towards it. So that's really all this is. Just being intentional. You don't need everything figured out today. You just need a destination, a date, and a plan because those 12 good years, they're happening whether you believe it or not. So why not make the most of it now? And I would love to hear where you've decided to go. So join me on the Prescription to Travel MD Facebook group. If you're a doctor, meet us in the doctor's lounge. You'll find tips and tricks and others like you who want to enjoy the life that they've been given now. We're all here to get you to your next destination. If you've enjoyed this episode, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube, wherever you're listening. We really appreciate the support of the show. Share this episode with a friend who could use a reset, who could use a vacation or a trip, who wants to learn how to use their points. And if you have any questions and you want to develop your own strategy for using your points and miles or figuring out a way to take your time off so that way you can create this intentional reset and pause, make sure you reach out to me as well. You can find me on Instagram and any of the places that I've shared before. So thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.